Broadcasting from the Any Hour Services podcast studios, I'm your host, Mike Wilson, and on this episode of In the House, we're going to be talking about attic fans. Let's go. In the House is a podcast about the major systems in the house: electrical, plumbing, heating, and air conditioning. Each week, I'm joined by a panel of experts. We pick a topic and we discuss it in depth. It's meant to be informative and hopefully bring you some value. I've got Gavin and Shane with me. They're managers over the electrical department at Any Hour Services. Like I said in the beginning, we're going to be talking about attic fans. So there's a couple of fans that kind of go up in the upper parts of the house. Is an attic fan different from a whole house fan?
An attic fan is different than a whole house fan. The main difference being an attic fan pulls air from the attic and then pushes it out from the attic. So it's got to have some way to get it into the attic and then out. The whole house fan takes air from
you said the attic fan is pulling air from the attic and pushing it out? It's not pulling air from the house?
So it has to get air from the attic. So some of them they have like gable vent that it'll pull air back through. Some of them, the old soffits, they had a corrugated soffit. So the soffits would let some air flow through. So
an attic fan is essentially like an exhaust fan for just the attic.
Yep.
So you don't have to have, it's not meant to pull hot air from the house. You're cooling down the attic essentially.
That's all it does, is cool down the attic.
Okay, well, that's good to know. Let's see. Is an attic fan something that is common in homes when they're being built? Like, I mean, is that a common thing?
No. From my experience, no.
No?
No.
Well, talk to us about some of the advantages. Why would someone get an attic fan?
The attic fan keeps the attic cooler.
Okay.
So with your air conditioning, it's trying to cool the house. When you have a hot attic, 150, whatever it gets to, it's working against that, so the heat can come through to your home. So you're trying to eliminate that so that your air conditioning doesn't have to work as hard.
Gotcha. So the insulation that we have in the attic, is that to keep the heat loss of, like, making the house hotter, or is it meant to keep that cold air in from leaking into the attic?
Yes.
Both. Okay. So then if the insulation is done properly, why do we care how hot the attic gets?
No matter how much insulation you have in there, it's still going to get warm, and that heat's still going to be transferred down to the house itself. New homes, most new homes by codes now, you have to have roof vents. So if you look at any newer home, you'll see a little plastic covering, sometimes they're metal. They let the hot air escape out of the roof line. Some of the older homes did not have that, so it just captured the air there. So the basic reason we put a whole house fan in there is to actually get that air out of there faster.
Whole house fan?
Attic fan.
Got it.
Attic fan. We'll keep that right. So it's to get that air out of there faster. Through the roof vents, the air will actually go out, but just not as quickly as it will with the attic fan.
I remember I was watching some videos on YouTube, and I saw somebody explain. It was a company down in Arizona, and I lived in Arizona for a couple of years, and it gets hot down there, and like the inside of the cars, it's brutal. And they talked about how, it may be 110 outside or 100 outside, but inside the car, it's baking. It can be 130, 150 degrees in there because you got all these windows and stuff, baking it. But you'd be surprised how much it lowers the temperature inside the car just by cracking the windows, because you're not creating an oven. You actually, all of a sudden, instead of the sun going through the windows and baking the inside of the car, you're lowering the temperature closer to the ambient temperature outside. And that's how I think about the attic fan, is that when you're trying to cool your home and it's 100 degrees outside, it could be 150, inside the attic, and you've got that fighting against your home. But if you can get air flowing through the attic, and you can get that closer to 100 degrees, your air conditioner doesn't have to work as hard. Your home is more energy efficient. You're not losing as much heat. So there's lots of advantages there. Roofers even talk about extending the life of shingles on a roof when you can lower that temperature inside, because you're not heating up that tar and those shingles from underneath. So Anyway, Is it complicated to install, like putting in an attic fan?
Not really. It's not bad at all.
Okay.
I've done a few of them. They come in a kit. Usually you cut a circular hole, and the square that is the metal for the fan is a heck of a lot bigger. So you cut it, get it underneath the shingles, and then just make sure it's sealed right. Get some silicone or tar or whatever underneath it.
So this particular attic fan you're talking about is installed in the roof itself, not
Yes.
on the sides.
Yeah.
So what kind of power do they take?
Just 120, and then there are ones that do take solar. They just have solar panels on top of it.
Gotcha.
So
Were you going to say something?
I was going to say, as you're talking about that, there are two different kind of attic fans. There's one called a gable fan.
Mm-hmm.
The gable fan's what you're talking about, where it comes out of the side of the house.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rooftop that Gavin's talking about, a lot of them look like a mushroom up on top. And as we're talking about sealing those fans, that's one of the most important things. If you're cutting a hole in the roof, make sure that you seal that right. Like Gavin said, it's got to be tucked under the shingles. We've got to use roofing tar. Silicone is one of those things that really shouldn't be used on a roof too much, but use a good quality roofing tar. And when in doubt, even get a roofer over to make sure that's done right, because you can create a lot more problems in your house than you can solve by putting an attic fan in if it's done wrong.
All that hot air that you're letting out is being replaced with all the water you're putting in.
Be.
So you talk about the two different kinds. Is one of them better than the other? It seems like if there's a potential for leaks that much, why wouldn't you put one in the gable rather than in the roof?
Some homes don't have gables. If you look at the way some homes are built, all the roof lines come down. Some homes that have a gable, and a gable is a peak on a roof. So where your sidewall is flat all the way up to the peak, so you have a spot where like some flow down on every angle, so you can't
Flow down.
I
I got you. There's not a flat wall
line.
there. I got you.
Yes.
I got you. Mm-hmm. That makes more sense. Okay, because like any human, when I'm envisioning things, I'm envisioning, it's just my house. This is how my house is, and I happen to be in a situation where I've actually wanted to put. I've got an older house, like built in the 30s, and there's a lot of things that have been updated in it, and I've wanted to put an attic fan in because. There's definitely hot and cold spots around the house. The insulation is insufficient at this particular point, but I haven't put more insulation in because I also want to go through and add some recessed cans and some things. And before I put the insulation in, I want to go through and do that stuff. And so I've thought about putting in, an attic fan to help exhaust. When I made that connection in my mind with, cracking the windows on the car and trying to get that attic closer to that ambient temperature outside, especially if you have like a part of the house that's shaded, like, because I do actually have one part of the attic that's shaded, and then if we put the fan on the other end, so we're like exhausting
Sucking
over where
from
it's
that
hot
side.
and sucking the cooler air. Oh man, I think I got some ideas now. As I was doing a little bit of research on this, I realized that when you're creating that pressure, that static pressure of pulling the air out, that an important step, or you tell me how important this step is actually sealing up, underneath the insulation, like where the sheetrock is. You've got all of the entrance points into the attic, from can lights, from wall top plates not being sealed up. You've got all of that. Even though it's not a whole house fan, if you're creating enough static pressure, all of a sudden it's not doing a whole house fan, but it is sucking air up in there. So is that part of the installation of an attic fan, is going through and sealing things up?
I haven't ever done it, but I've seen a lot of people that say it is important to do that, because it's sucking the air out of the walls and whatever else, and not doing what it's supposed to do.
Your thoughts, Shane?
And I'd say one of the biggest problems we have with whole house fans is just not enough airflow. So if you don't have enough airflow or vents coming into the house, you're going to start. It's going to create even a bigger
coming into
pressure.
the attic or the roof area.
Yeah, so like we talked about, having like a gable vent or something, somewhere that air can get into the attic. If you don't have that, you're going to create a much higher pressure, and then it's going to start sucking from anywhere it can. So if you can really maximize your airflow into the attic, you're not going to have too many problems with wanting it to suck out of everything else.
Gotcha. How do you control these fans? Do they run all the time? Are they ran by a thermostat, a switch? How do you run these? How are they controlled?
Usually they're off a thermostat.
Off a thermostat.
Yeah, they do have a thermostat with them that come with them. I've had a lot of people that don't want the thermostat. You just put it on a switch so that they can turn on when they want to.
Gotcha. So is it a set temperature, or can you control where you want it to be set at?
You can control it.
Like how low can you go with
I
the
think
temperature?
the lowest that I've seen is 60, I think.
Really? You can have it kick on
so.
at 60 degrees? Does it work in the reverse? No, that wouldn't work in the winter. I was thinking like suck the cold air out, but you'd just be bringing more cold air in.
Nope, doesn't
Never
work.
mind. Stupid host questions here. I'm on the fly, working without a net, you know.
Yeah, some of those are as low as 60. You'll see a lot of them that actually start up in the 90s to 100 degrees up there. An attic to be at 100 degrees is actually not very hot at all. Like we've talked about, it can get up to 150 degrees in there.
Do we have a lot of people in this area? I mean, we're in Utah. Are these fans better for different types of climates? Like, is it a popular thing to do here in the high desert, as popular as it would be in, say, deep south?
I've read that it's better for humidity, to get the humidity out there so it doesn't turn into like a rainforest in your attic, so that
Gotcha.
it doesn't mold. Here, I've seen a lot of them. A lot of people do it, but I think it helps.
So
a
it
lot with
depends on the climate. If you live in a humid climate, one of the advantages of having an attic fan is that you reduce the likelihood of mold growing in the attic. But here, one of the advantages, not necessarily, you don't have the issue as much with the mold, but you have the energy, making your HVAC system more energy efficient and helping to lower the temperature in the attic. Okay. If someone does have an attic fan, what kind of maintenance do they require?
So as far as maintenance, they don't require very much maintenance. Our biggest call coming into us on fans having problems is they get really squeaky sometimes, or they'll start kind of knocking up there. Those fan blades can get off balance. The fan motors can actually wear out. You might hear just a humming sound coming from up there. If it gets bound up, it might even trip your breaker. So, but as far as maintenance, other than that, just make sure that no birds build nests up inside of it. Kind of check it every so often and make sure that airflow can actually come out.
So like most things, is it's cleaning really pretty much the only maintenance that you have to do to it? Are there things that you need to lubricate to keep it from squeaking, or is it really just the kind of dust and things that get in it that start to wear it out?
That's about it. You really shouldn't have to deal with it much at all. Just
how long should they last, or how long do they last? I know it depends, but give me something.
Well, I think it comes down to how often they're used.
Okay.
Some people have that turned up a lot higher, so they don't come on a lot. Some people are in shady spots too. If you plant a big tree that shades your house a lot, like you talked about, Mike, it's going to come on a lot less. So,
I'd put the thing on the hot part of the roof so that it comes on more, but it's pulling air from the shady spot. So,
but yeah, no, I've seen them up there 20, 25 years. I've also seen them up there 2 and 3 years where they're having problems. So,
gotcha. I'm assuming that there are different qualities. You can spend more for a nicer fan, and the nicer it is, hopefully the longer it lasts.
Hopefully.
Do you see any installation mistakes from people trying to get up there and do it themselves? Like, I don't know if they run a box fan and put it over that little vent at the attic and try and get it to move some air. Like, tell me some of the things that you've seen in attics.
I've seen a lot where they take the swamp cooler, they've taken that off, and they've just used that as the attic fan housing.
Really?
Yeah. And
so it's not used to like cool the house anymore.
Yeah. And
do they reverse the fan?
Well, they put the fan inside of it to suck out the air, but they've got openings, and it's just hokey. Wires too close to metal and stuff like that.
Okay. There you go. So is there a a time of year that's better to install them? Like, I mean, should you go spring, summer, fall, stay away from the winter? Like, when's the best time to get something like this installed?
Well, I'd say as far as our end, I mean, if you'd love to call us when it's nice and cool and no snow on the roof, that's the best time for sure.
Oh, right, because it's nice and the temperature's nice in the attic, huh?
Yeah, well, we're here in Utah, so in the wintertime it's tough because you do get snow on the roof. Also in the summertime, when it's the very hottest times of the year, we can get up there on your shingles. When your shingles get really hot, they start to melt. So even us stepping on your shingles can ruin your shingles.
Gotcha. So try and go for spring or fall, or, you know, as long as there's not snow up on the roof.
Or if we do, I mean, we can install them in the mornings before it gets real hot and the sun comes up. But yeah, we don't want to be on the roofs when it's really hot out there.
Gotcha. Do you get a lot of calls for attic fans in this market in Utah?
We don't get a ton. We do get some though.
Okay. Anything else someone should know? I mean, it's not a super long episode, attic fans, you know, there's not a ton to like, you know, go over with them, but is there anything else about attic fans you would want people listening to know about?
I think the biggest thing is sizing your attic fan to the size of your attic.
Talk to me about that.
I know they say on them how many cubic feet they'll move. You just got to make sure it's going to move enough. It may not do anything if you're sizing it too small.
Can you also size it too large?
Yeah, because then it'll try to suck in from your house instead of.
Gotcha. So, I mean, I'm assuming something like this, free estimate for, you know, usually get a contractor to come out there, take a look at it and do that type of thing. And I'm assuming for the show, you've got a special deal for Mike Wilson at his house for his attic fan, right? I won't put you on the spot and make you say what it is. We can negotiate that after the show. But hey, you know, that's the show. I'm going to get to this negotiation quick. We'll be back next Tuesday with a new episode of In the House. If you'd like to know more about Any Hour Services, Google anyhourservices.com, or I guess you would just Google Any Hour Services. You could go directly to anyhourservices.com. I'd like to thank my guests, Gavin and Shane, for being here and letting us know what's up with attic fans. Anyway, I've been your host, Mike Wilson, and you've been listening to In the House. See ya.